Star Wars Acolyte Episode 5 has given us the dark side goodness that we've all been looking for, but it actually might be a little bit deeper than we all think. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. The story for Star Wars Acolyte is still really muddy and not very focused, but Episode 5 did the thing that makes me love Star Wars every single time they do it, which is an epic dark side fight scene. Yes, every time. I don't care if the story doesn't necessarily make sense all the time. I can overlook it if there's an epic fight scene. I'm sorry. Star Wars The Acolyte is this weird mix of a bunch of good ideas with poor execution or just not enough good timelines to actually review the stories how they need to. I feel like a lot of the lines that they're using are draft one of the script kind of lines and not ones that meant to actually get released, but they had to get the story out. So completely understandable, but when you actually factor in the budget of this, it kind of doesn't make sense. But I want to get to my theory. That's besides the point. That's a deeper story for a different day. But something that I think is very interesting and is this piece that we saw in The Rise of Skywalker very heavily, and it's the Force healing. The Force healing in Star Wars is something that we've heard about, we had mention of. Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, had basically used this as an idea to entice Anakin Skywalker to join the dark side, and now we're having it brought back again. I've been seeing a few people actually say, is this actually Darth Plagueis? Because he was very well known for that. And the timelines might actually work out. Legends has a lot more detail on Darth Plagueis, much more than is actually in canon. In canon, there isn't a lot. It's basically that mention in the movie, and then they say, oh yeah, stuff happens. Legends is a little bit more fleshed out. Canon, not so much. So in theory, the time frame would be 147 BBY in Legends. This is the time frame that we're given in Legends. It's a range of 147 to 120 BBY that Darth Plagueis is actually born. This kind of works in our favor, as we see the stranger, as he's called in the credits, is relatively young. Probably anywhere from 30s to 50s, maybe even 60s if we're looking at just kind of like Star Wars in general, timelines and ages and that kind of stuff. It's kind of stretched out. It seems like a lot of people in Star Wars actually have a longer lifespan, and it's a little bit harder to actually pin down specifically the ages of everybody. But let's just say he's the same actor as Manny Jacinto, which is around like 36, 37. If that's the case, this timeline might actually work out. It's possible that Darth Plagueis is actually around during this time frame, because Acolyte takes place around, I think, 137 BBY. They aren't very specific, but we know that it's set around 100 years before The Phantom Menace. This is something that we do know of, and a lot of people are saying, hey, it's confirmed that he actually is playing a Sith Lord. He specifically says it, and then in interviews afterwards, they confirm that he is indeed a Sith Lord, looking for an apprentice. So we might actually be seeing this idea and this story actually underneath it, showing the full life cycle of the Rule of Two. Obviously, though, we have some details that kind of need to get worked out. The Sith are supposed to be extinct, or at least believed to be extinct. They are this legend at this point. They've been gone for a millennia, so 1,000 years this idea of the Sith have been gone. And each time, they're still there, clearly. We're not in disbelief that they're in the background. But typically they are very secretive, so there needs to be effort in terms of hiding the truth. And it might just be the hubris of the Jedi like that are thinking that, hey, the Sith aren't actually here. But going back to this Plagueis theory, I think it would be fascinating to see this idea of Plagueis actually played out on screen. It would be so fascinating to see a life cycle of the Rule of Two played out in front of us in a way that we haven't ever seen it before, with a character that we've had hyped up for us for decades upon decades. I would love to see this idea. Now, is this actually something that they're probably going to do? I don't think so. I think Darth Plagueis is too much of a well-known character to play with in that way. We've already seen people freak out around Ki-Adi-Mundi, who's a nobody character. Even the lore in Legends doesn't really care about him as a character. They just see him as a... I mean, the whole thing of like, it's not possible for the Sith. They've been gone for millennia. Clearly, he's given explicit proof that the Sith are back. And he's still like, nah, fam, that's not happening. So that's the kind of character that people are freaking out about, that he's there and putting a lot of stock in it. So if they went back and actually did something with Darth Plagueis, I think the expectations for that would be so huge that I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. But I love this idea of having a true Sith Lord in this time frame, of having the story and storyline of the Rule of Two there, and having someone like the Stranger be this perspective that is getting fleshed out even deeper. Whether or not it's actually Darth Plagueis, I don't particularly care. I think it would be interesting to see a character that we've known before. I do question whether or not the Stranger is actually going to make it to the end of the season. It seems like he might not. Leslie Headland has specifically said that she intends to have a definitive end with the Acolyte Season 1. And if there are future seasons, then they would have their own threads that they take from that. But most of the main ones from the Acolyte are actually going to get finished off. So that's a little bit disappointing. This specific show is set up like an actual TV show, but is not given the ability to actually be performing as a specific TV show. I feel like it's another one of those things where they're trying one thing, but they're not actually able to accomplish that one thing, so they end up trying 5 different things. Again, besides the point, but Star Wars Acolyte has a lot it actually needs to get through in the last 3 episodes, and if they focus around this idea of the Acolyte, I would love to see that. But again, we have like the thread of May and Osha, and May taking Osha's place, then we have the switch up there. I don't know if they're going to be able to like very strategically or satisfyingly end this series on all of these loose threads that they have dangling all the way from the first episode. And now we have this theory and ideas around who this Sith could be and the effects that the Sith has on the rest of the galaxy and the Sith itself. So many ideas that are being played around with in this single episode that has had more development in the overarching story than the previous 4 did. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I would love to see a deeper focus on the Sith aspect of it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, though. I would love to hear your thoughts around Darth Plagueis being the actual Sith and this being an origin story for Darth Plagueis. And also, how likely do you think that this theory is? Would love to hear that in the comments below. As always, check out our podcast, and may the Force be with you.